Making this review was a struggle. I used this phone for a week and at the end I was left with nothing. There was no standout features, but this led me into understanding that Motorola and their phones are kind of just mid. And this one, the Motorola Moto G 5G 2023, is no different. Now, I'm going to be negative about this phone for a few sections. Actually, you know what? Let's talk about everything right now. This phone is not memorable. Maybe there are some or a lot of Samsung A series, TCL, or Nokia phones like this as well, but this one really stumped me. On paper, everything is not great, but the future is what disappoints me the most. We have the Snapdragon 480 Plus chip in here with 4GB of RAM, expandable to 8GB total thanks to that 128GB of UFS storage, which is expandable with a micro SD card slot. It's most likely UFS 2.1 because that's the speed that it runs at, but there's no official UFS 2.1 marking from Motorola. This runs Android 14, which is where it will stay, while security updates will end May of 2026, something Motorola directly tells you. I kind of like that. They also give you the schematics for the phone. Yeah, if you go to iFixit's site, there are a few documents that will actually show you how to do repairs and give you information about the board that LG, Samsung, and Apple don't even do. Good job on Motorola, and no, I can't show you because the document can't be shared without their consent. Remember, rules are good. So far these specs aren't great, but they do work. Playing games is okay, using social media is okay, texting is okay. Everything on this phone generally goes like that. Tap, wait a second, then proceed. It's not brutally slow, but it ain't a fast phone by any metrics. The screen doesn't help either, being a low quality 720p 120Hz refresh rate, yet it does not feel faster than 60Hz. The screen to body ratio also shows that it's not meant to be a great screen, but they did go with a hole punch for the screen. This 6.5-inch LCD panel is exactly what you would expect, since the repair cost for me is currently $15.39. Images don't look great, and neither does video, but it does okay for a 720p screen, I guess. The phone is 6.46 inches tall and 189 grams, making it big and decently weighted, but not too big or heavy. This is obviously glass, Gorilla Glass, I'm not really sure. Then the rest of the phone is plastic, even the little ring that goes around the camera lens cover, which that is actually glass. On the top of the phone, we get a lone microphone, just like how the left side has a lone SIM and SD card tray. Then on the right side, we have the volume and power buttons, the latter getting a built-in fingerprint scanner. Finally, on the bottom, it houses the budget staples, the headset jack, and the USB-C 2.0 port, which allows for 15 watts of charging, or 1% a minute average. There's also another microphone and a loudspeaker, which pairs to the earpiece to give you an okay stereo sound. For some reason, spatial audio was turned on and made it sound worse than it actually is, so remove that for sure. The back has a matte texture to it that hides some scratches, but feels very cheap. Camera area is plastic as well, of course having the tacky 48 megapixel quad pixel text here. These are both the main 48 megapixel sensor and the 2 megapixel macro camera. So essentially one camera, and to be honest, it ain't great. The video is only 1080p 30 frames per second, so even though we get pixels for 8K video, we don't even get 2K or 4K video at any frame rates. The front camera is an 8 megapixel sensor with the same video capabilities and not so great quality either. This was a $250 phone when new that can be found for under $100 used, so reasonable for the price? Maybe. There's no optical image stabilization on this camera, which makes sense for the price, I guess. Now, I know I'm talking about a 2020 phone and the camera isn't that great to begin with, and it's technically pricing for my parts vendor, but I can get the 108 megapixel optically stabilized sensor from the Motorola Moto Edge Plus 2020 for a little over $5. So it feels like this 48 megapixel sensor in the phone costs next to nothing or was done on purpose. I know the Snapdragon 480 Plus limits to 64 megapixels, but still would be cool to see a decent camera in a phone that costs $250 new. Compared to the 2025 version of this phone that costs $200, a used Moto Edge 2024 comes with a better spec sheet for $200 used. So maybe Motorola should buy back phones like the Edge and sell them for $200 used instead of creating this phone, which I call e-waste. While not exclusive to Motorola, this phone is e-waste. Why do companies make these phones to meet these cheap margins when buying used is right there? How come that aspect is not sustainable at all? You have the greedy ones like Apple selling their phones for 10% off or whatever it is for their refurbs, but even that's great. When some UPS worker stole my brand new computer that I ordered from Apple, I got this one refurbished from Apple and saved like $600. With our Apple One program, I was actually able to add Apple Care onto this for $6 a month 3 years after I got it. So that's pretty great. But my point is that this is what companies should be focusing on. Even stuff like this, the battery, is frustrating. It is a 5,000 milliamp cell and has crazy good battery life actually. Like, look at these battery stats. 1 day battery life is beyond easy to do, as is 2 day. But I hated using this phone. So getting a day's use out of this often left me with 80% of battery when I wasn't watching videos all the time on this. But again, e-waste, because the Moto G 2023, 2024, and 2025 all have the similar 5,000 milliamp batteries with 2 different voltages and connectors, but the physical shape of the battery is different, meaning none of these are interchangeable. That means multiple SKUs and multiple batteries that will be useless in the future. So while the battery is great, the application isn't. No NFC, no Wi-Fi 6, no wireless charging, all non-problems for the price, but all stuff that's solved by a similar priced used Moto Edge 2022. It's a tale as old as time, that a used flagship is better than a new budget phone. But the Moto G 5G 2023 really brings us home because the phone felt boring. Not good boring like the S22 Ultra, instead it's bad boring. I spent so much time researching for this video because I didn't know what to do. I compared so many different years of Moto G Power, Moto G 5G, and Moto G styluses and ultimately found that they really don't change. The 2025 version of this phone has a processor that is roughly 9% faster in benchmarks, with the Moto G stylus and obviously the Edge models being a decent jump in performance. Funny enough, the Moto G stylus 5G 2023 and 2024 both have the Snapdragon 6 Gen 1 processor. To come back to the title of this section, why does this phone exist? Like I said, I don't want to bash this phone, and yes, I understand that not everyone can afford the most expensive phone in the world, but they know how to use the internet, right? At $250, actually, let's say $168 or $200, because that's how much they sell them brand new at T-Mobile. Well, we can get an iPhone 13 mini or even an iPad mini 5. Joking, but look, you can get a Moto Edge 2024, Samsung Z Flip 5 even, wow, maybe not the Note 20, but the Google Pixel 6 Pro, OnePlus 8, Moto Edge Plus, and of course, if we wait long enough, the best of the best, OnePlus 7 Pro. In the US, there's really no excuse to buy this phone if you have the internet and can wait a week, but still, I asked Gemini. Feel free to pause and see exactly what I said, but I brought up coping mechanisms as if this was all that Gemini could afford. It brings up that people need a reliable phone, but do a Google search for the Moto G 5G 2023, and the CNET post is literally about how it's a tough sell. And the first Reddit post is about how it's the worst phone they've ever used. The 3.3 star rating is just the cherry on top. Then Gemini talks about how the battery life is good, which I agree with, but then there's no shortage of battery kings out there. And having a slow processor isn't a good excuse for that. The 120Hz display is good on paper, terrible in real life, but this feels kind of important, but ruined by what I have been saying, my UX. First off, I thought that this was a hallucination, but my UX is what Motorola actually calls their operating system now. Something I never knew. It's generally bloat-free, but carriers shove a bunch of apps on here, but at the same time, there's a decent amount of Motorola apps on here, but you can remove almost all of them, which is nice, I guess. The OS is closest to stock Android, similar to Nothing OS, but we do get Motorola gestures, just, the basic ones. No double tap to wake here. The ambient display, like the Moto Edge 2020, is gone, essentially allowing you to see a notification at a glance, but it doesn't stay here when you tap it. Now when you interact with a notification, it just turns the screen on all the way. Not really a fan of that. Gemini brings up the speakers, which aren't great. I don't know about you, but it feels like AI doesn't really have any real-world experiences with any of these devices that they talk about. The rest of this is general comparisons to equally not great phones. I would say that this might be better than the Samsung A14, but that's not really a high bar. Also, 5G being a benefit? What is this, 2020? At the end of the day, I'm here to help you out and be better than AI. Why would you buy this phone? Well, its good battery life and cheap build means that you won't cry if you lose it or need to fix it. That said, I do have this one here that just died for no reason, so that's not great. Having 2 cameras on the back when it's really only one is a better step than having 2 or 3 useless extra cameras. Should you buy this phone? No. But like I said, the repairability is a bonus in my book. That said, there are a lot of other phones that are the same or similar in pricing that can be replaced cheaply as well. Similar to the Revel 7 video that I did, this phone doesn't really need a review or is really worth a video in the first place. Maybe I'm here to just tell you to save more money and get something better. And that's my review of the Moto G 5G 2023, a phone that got over a 1900 word review, even though it doesn't really deserve it. But tell me something, what do you think that these phones serve purpose-wise? Let me know what you think, and as always, join the 1%. Trust that my other reviews are more positive, and as always, thanks for watching.